Peace. Islam. Sheekamauga Alamassee-El. Coming at y'all live. Deep, deep, deep down. Alamassee, Arabian country. Chilling in the compound. You know what I'm saying? Just really want to do a real quick tap in. One of the things that we're going to continue to break down, it's not discussed as much as far as the history of the Mississippian people, specifically in like the last 200 years or so. It's not really discussed and talked about as much. It's talked about in a broad sense, but people don't really get into the specifics of it and break it down like it needs to be broke down. And the one thing that me personally I strive to do is make a lot of things practical for the real Mississippians so we can go forward more on a united front. Those of us who care. Because, a lot of these clowns, a lot of these infidel type of people, non-believing type of people, I mean, there's nothing you can do for them. They're going into the abyss. You just got to let them go. And that's one thing about the discipline of being a Moor, a so-called a Moorish American or a Moor. The discipline of it is to kind of just be able to have a hands-off policy and allowing individuals to go on their soul journeys and their paths and have a hands-off policy and allow things to manifest how they need to manifest. You deal with your knowledge of self and your development on your path. Because at the end of the day, you incarnate alone and you leave alone. So you got to go back to Allah for your judgment individually. So you don't necessarily need to be too entrenched in this reality into physical relationships and in the physical depths of the whole reality. You don't need to attach yourself too much to it. All you can do is kind of develop yourself on an individual level and tie yourself naturally through the grace of Allah with other beings in the same soul group, and y'all can take this journey together, inshallah. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times, especially in a situation like we have now, where everything is extremely degenerate and Roman, a lot of real Muslims, Mississippians who are really in the know and dealing with knowledge of self, you're going to find yourself, as time goes on, the more you develop yourself, you're going to find yourself more on a solo mission, more on a lone wolf mission, like a lone ranger. And that's perfectly fine, because in times like now, that's really how that's how a lot of us are going to find each other. Kind of just not being afraid to take that lone wolf road, that lone path, because the herd has never been as stupid as it is now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and naturally, through the forces of the satanic forces, or even through the forces of the Most High, the culling of the herd is coming. You know what I'm saying? It's just gonna be chopped down, and a lot of people think that it's crazy. A lot of individuals really think that if they just put their head in the sand and play dumb, you know what I'm saying, and stay out of the way, and take the safe route, don't be dangerous, don't be threatening. You know what I mean? Like just the scared civilian, the scared sheeple mentality. They really think that that's going to really save them and guarantee them a future. But what they fail to realize is, the powers that be, they actually cultivate they cultivate a large herd. You know what I'm saying? They process your mind so you can be gathered into a herd of cattle, so they can slaughter you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they want you. So at the end of the day, the herd is going to be the one slaughtered first. Then they may go after the wolves. You know what I mean? But you thinking you're going to take the easy route, not develop yourself, not participate in the rebellion or the resistance or anything like that. You thinking that you're going to be safer just putting your head down, being a dummy, going along, being domesticated, losing your natural culture, and just going along to get along. You thinking that's going to save you. Bro, you know what I'm saying? The real ones that you think are the real ones that you may look at an entity like me, yours truly, and you may think I'm in danger. You know what I'm saying? Which we're all in danger. And this is a dangerous reality. You know what I'm saying? For anybody. You know what I mean? But you may think I'm in more danger by just being myself, as the great Noble Drew Ali instructed us to do. You may think I'm putting myself in danger. You know what I'm saying? By really just being who Allah wanted me to be out here in these streets. You know what I'm saying? While you walking around assimilating. But the truth is, you're in more danger than I am, because they're gonna go after the soft, easy targets first. You sat here and domesticated yourself through your own will. A lot of y'all have sat here and domesticated yourself, and deep down in your DNA, you know that you're domesticating yourself. You know this is not your true nature. You know assimilation, going along to get along, trying to become European, and trying to going after foreign gods, worshiping foreign gods. You know deep down in your DNA that it's not right, but you're scared. You know what I'm saying? You're a coward. So you're like, well, I don't want something bad to happen to me, even though we're all going to leave the plane anyway. You know what I'm saying? So-called, there's no such thing as death, but we're all going to end up in the same situation, whether you engage in death or natural ascendancy. You know what I'm saying? We're all going to end up in the same situation. But it's interesting that you really feel like by just like of your own will domesticating yourself, going along to get along, giving up your culture, signing your rights away over and over again, releasing yourself to the United States kind of welfare system of pensions and so-called jobs and all that, instead of actually going out here being an entrepreneur, fighting the battles every day, striving every day. You just taking the easy route and signing deals, thinking you finna get a pension, taking a job, and just giving your whole life away, not striving to set your children up in their own educational situations, not giving them nothing to inherit, not leaving any businesses. I mean, literally, the whole last two or three generations, literally engaged in that garbage. You know what I'm saying? Y'all really accepted becoming communists, and it's crazy. And a lot of y'all were so scared and cowardly that y'all just like, well, I'm just going to assimilate. It's easier to go this way. I don't want to get knocked upside my head. You know what I'm saying? Like blah, blah, blah. And understand. You're going to get knocked upside your head anyway. That's the irony in all of it. You did all this assimilating and domesticating yourself, going along to get along, eating the Kool-Aid, not going out here fighting every day, not going through the rigors of entrepreneurship, self-reliance, actually doing whatever it takes to maintain your birth rights, even if it takes for you to martyr yourself. Y'all did all that. A lot of y'all did all that. A lot of the elders, and people still doing it, but a lot of the elders and baby boomers and all these people, y'all did all that. You know what I'm saying? Y'all did all that trying to avoid, because you were scared to fight and avoid getting knocked upside your head or getting, killed or whatever you thought was going to happen to you by just being yourself and being a rebel that's in your Mississippian blood. You know what I'm saying? Y'all did all that. And what you gonna fail to realize is that you still finna get knocked upside your head. You know what I'm saying? Very soon. And it's gonna be, you know what I'm saying? And the pain and the messed up thing about it is you've domesticated yourself, you've disarmed yourself, you've allowed yourself to be cut off internationally from any type of help by domesticating yourself and not maintaining your cultural habit and everything like that. Because say what you want about a real rebel, I maintain my cultural habit. So at the end of the day, there are international entities that I can throw a flag up and be recognized by if it ever comes down to it. But a lot of you clowns, you know what I'm saying, of Mississippian blood, who just domesticated yourself and assimilated and went along to get along, you've so disarmed yourself and allowed yourself to be further and further denationalized by assimilation and integration and all type of garbage. You know what I'm saying? Of your own free will. And again, being cowards, because at the end of the day, that's very cowardly. That's why a lot of people who come here, foreigners, they don't respect none of y'all, because they understand that's cowardly. Marching and praying and begging, crying about fake racism and all that. And crying about it, but you're still participating in the same system. You're not striving to set up your own nation or deal with your own nationality and cultural habit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's laughable and it's punktified. Crying about racism, but you still in the same system. So you sign your rights to go into the system, but you crying about being treated bad in that same system because you were cowardly you were too cowardly and too lazy to actually go out here and strive to maintain your nation. And of course, you're going to be judged for that. And then a lot of y'all, it's interesting because this is the thing. And I ain't gonna rag on a lot of you clowns, all you assimilating domesticated clowns too much in this drop. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll be going on for hours just ragging on you clowns. Because I just see so much degradation every day. People walking with their heads down, just spirits broken and all that. And it's on these people. Like y'all, they decided to take that path in life. Everybody had a choice. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, striving for your birthrights every day. That junk is hard. You know what I'm saying? It's taxing. It's hard. It ages you. You know what I mean? You may not make it. It may mess with your health. But at the end of the day, you taking Allah's path. So at the end of the day, you gonna have some form of protection. If it's time for you to martyr yourself, it's time to go. Whatever time it's time to go, it is what it is. But you still taking the path. But if you a dang on coward, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, but a lot of y'all, I mean, a lot of you elders, y'all did all this assimilating. Y'all put your heads down and domesticated yourselves. and again, you set yourself up to be just slaughtered, because when you give up when you sign your rights over, you give up your weapons, you give up everything. You know what I'm saying? Theoretically, however you want to break it down. At the end of the day, you're gonna get targeted for what's called democide. You know what I'm saying? So y'all, a lot of y'all drunk the Kool-Aid. Y'all gave up y'all gave up your, hypothetically speaking, and everything. Y'all gave up your weapons, gave up your culture. You gave up your you sacrificed your children. You know what I'm saying? You sat up here and sent your children to be educated by foreigners, by people who are actually waging war on you. You know what I'm saying? And you know that. And y'all knowingly did all that stuff. You clowns did all that for all these generations. And you just literally set yourself up for democide. If you don't know what democide is, go research it. But people happened in the Soviet Union. People who signed their rights over and gave up their weapons and quit fighting. People happened to them people. People happened in communist China, in Red China after 1945. People who signed their rights over and gave up all their guns and everything, gave up all their rights. You know what I'm saying? Disarmed themselves and just said, let me just go in the system because it's easier to do that and I won't get knocked upside my head. They all got left in democide. You know what I'm saying? and a lot of people ain't here no more. Let's just put it like that. And that's the same thing will happen to a lot of you clowns that thought it was all right to not strive and sacrifice and rebel and all of that. Y'all gonna be dealing with democide. And don't be looking at a real mo. People, the ones that y'all laughed at, said was crazy, said was insane, called thugs and called everything under the sun but a child of God. The ones that really kept their culture intact. Y'all had everything under the sun to say about the real ones. But we gonna be all right, because at least we set ourselves up to defend ourselves. A lot of you clowns, again, democide is coming. Best believe that. And you ain't got nobody but yourself to blame, because Allah, God hates cowards. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, in this drop, what we kind of want to break down is we really want to start talking about how the American Mississippian people, after the Civil War, were forced to give up their culture. And this is why a lot of people are, we've always called ourselves the lost people. Everybody's always said, well, why do the Mississippian people, which is misnomer as Black Americans or whatever, have no culture? They have they don't have their own language. They don't have anything. You know what I'm saying? Like that has been an ongoing narrative and observation from ourselves internally and outsiders for a very long time. And everybody's like, dang, what happened to these people? Why don't they have their own situation? Why, you know what I'm saying? What really happened to them? Why are they just so assimilated? And why are they just kind of, in every situation, they're forced to be up under some type of foreigner? What happened? You know what I'm saying? Well, we're going to start breaking down, like, it really needs to be discussed what really happened to us. You know what I'm saying? Of course, they always giving us the slave narrative of, we were brought from Africa, they put us on plantations and they took our culture away and all that nonsense, you know what I'm saying? Which, again, that has been debunked and disproven over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Because again, we the mighty Mississippians. The only thing that could come over here and mass enslave us and put us on plantations is an act of God. You know what I mean? Like we've always been mighty in this land. We've always been free in this land because it's our homeland. We are the Atlantean people. You know what I'm saying? So ain't an entity gonna ever put us, unless people choose. A lot of people have chosen to sign their rights over, but unless we just all by and large choose to go on some plantations, which we had never have. It's never happened. It never happened. But either way it goes, whether that story is true or not, which is not, we are still walking around here with a missing culture. You know what I'm saying? Like that, and that's why we've never been able to kind of aggregate ourselves ever since 1865. We've never been able to rally ourselves, come together under one central theme, and renationalize ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And it really needs to be discussed about what really happened to us. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people have made vague references to it over the years and everything like that, but we really need to start going in, and the youth really need to know. And again, a lot of you elders, as the real moles come in and start really teaching the youth, a lot of you elders ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Y'all spent all these years partying, playing games, and BSing around. Y'all had way better thing to do than research and try to figure out what happened, so you could actually give your children a culture or nationality to inherit. So y'all really ought to be ashamed of yourselves, and y'all are really going to be judged. Not everyone, but collectively, a lot of y'all from the last couple of generations, y'all are really going to be judged the wrong way, because y'all had better things to do than actually get out here and try to tell the youth what really happened. You know what I'm saying? At least try to figure it out. Y'all were just sending your kids to these commie schools and stuff like that. That's all y'all was doing, asking no questions, like cowards. At the end of the day, y'all were straight up cowards. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, in this particular drop, we're gonna really go in on the American Home Mission, the Home Mission Society, an American Baptist Home Missionary Society. You know what I'm saying? Because again, we've gone over drops over and over again about how America was always the so-called United States. What's called the United States right now is really the Al-Moroccan Empire. You know what I'm saying? The swath of North America, now called the United States, was the Al-Moroccan Empire in olden times. Really all the way up to 1865. You know what I'm saying? It was the Al-Moroccan Empire, and the Al-Moroccan Empire actually stretched all the way down through Mexico, all the way down into Guatemala, and in parts of South America, and places like Cuba and all these places. But America is the Al-Moroccan Empire. And the dominant culture in the Al-Moroccan Empire was Islam, Islamism, Sufic Islam. You know what I'm saying? And that culture was the dominant culture in the interior. Let's get this straight. I'm gonna say this so all these clowns understand this, and all you brain dead, lame in the brain, silly people understand this. All the way until around 1865, okay? The dominant culture in so-called North America, aka the Al-Moroccan Empire, currently called the United States, was the Muslim culture. You know what I'm saying? It was the Muslim culture, and you also had the Yahudi culture, which is it's the Old Testament Hebraic culture. It's kind of one and the same. Okay? The New Testament Christianity, that culture was not predominant nowhere west of the Appalachian Mountains. Really up until really and truthfully all the way up and down there until 1865. Okay? Let me say that again. New Testament Christianity was not prevalent in North America, west of the Appalachian Mountains, really outside of the Northeast. It was not prevalent. It was actually a small minority in the rest of the country, all the way up until 1865. Okay? The rest of the country was always Muslim. You know what I'm saying? It was always Muslim. Let's beat that in everybody's head. So the missing culture of the Mississippian people, misnomer as so-called African Americans and Black American, is Islam, or it's the Hebraic culture. Okay, that's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? Turban rocking, wearing long tunics, true Islam, not Sunni Islam, not Shia Islam. That Islam is under the Pope. That's not us. Our Islam is under Allah only. You know what I'm saying? We are the Sufis. So again, the missing culture of the Mississippian people of North America, misnomer as so-called fake African Americans and all of that, is Islam. Okay? That is literally the missing culture, the Moorish culture. And we're gonna just go over we're gonna talk about the American Home Missionary Society and how and the role they played in the denationalization of the Mississippian people. So now it's interesting. We've already talked about a lot of these AME churches and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? They're not knocking these people's Christian. We're not knocking people's religion or none of that stuff. This is not a knock on your religion, but we're just spitting facts. The African Methodist Church and the Baptist Church in the current form that we know it, because there was an old form of Baptist, the Seventh-day Baptist, that was more Hebraic. It still kept the Sabbath and everything. That's the old culture that comes from so-called under King James and all these people that originally came over here. There's a new type of Baptist and all of that was not really indigenous. It was not really prevalent here, and it was actually kind of outlawed all through the country. That's why they used to call a lot of the country the slave-holding states, because if you came around with this non-Hebraic, non-Islamic type of setup, you literally were considered a criminal and a lowlife in the majority of this country. That's why they called it a slave state, because these people could not go in these places without getting hemmed up. You know what I'm saying? It's just facts. It's just facts. The Muslims and the Hebraic people were the bosses in old America. There was no New Testament Baptist culture outside of the Northeast. It's not indigenous to the rest of the country. So understand, this is what we're going to establish. This New Testament Baptist, African Methodist type of culture, church, Christianity type of culture, no, that comes from the Yankee Northeast. It does not come from the South. It's not indigenous to the South or the West or the Midwest, nowhere in America. It comes from the Northeast. Okay? It comes from Yankee land. And unfortunately, a lot of people up in Yankee land are not indigenous to America either. And that's well known. That's well documented. So we're going to do the knowledge on the American Home Missionary Society and kind of and just going to read some notes on just some small research I did. Just go through some notes and some events and just show that how these people went from east to west and helped denationalize and force Christianity on the Mississippian people. And we kind of been jacked up ever since. You know what I'm saying? Because these people hate Islam. Because one thing about this new form of Baptist culture, again, not knocking it, any New School Baptists, any AME members of these churches, not necessarily knocking your culture. You know what I'm saying? We're just doing a delineation that this culture is not indigenous to America. It was never the dominant culture in America. The indigenous culture of America is Islam, Islamism, the Muslim culture, the old Hebraic culture. That's what's indigenous to America. All that new stuff is not indigenous to America. You know what I'm saying? That's the main demonstration we're dealing with. So either you're gonna be American or you're gonna deal with a foreign god. That's the only delineation we're gonna deal with. You got religious freedom in this country, but understand the so-called New School Baptist demonstration and the African Methodist demonstration and the Presbyterian and all that, that's a foreign god. That's not American. That's not the American culture. It just is what it is. It's just facts. You know what I'm saying? We're going to start dealing with facts going forward. So just talk about the Home Missionary Society. So, and again, one thing about it, again, due to knowledge, why would they need missions? Why, as late as the 1830s, why would they need missionaries to go through America? Why do they have all these missionaries? If all of the slaveholders and all this and the rest of the country was so-called Great Britain and France and all that, when they call these places are termed as Christian countries and all that stuff, why all of a sudden in the 1800s and all this stuff after the United States was formed, would they need to be sending missionaries? Because I thought America was a British colony, and I thought British was Christian, or I thought America was a French colony at some point, and French was like Catholic Christian and all that stuff. Why would they need to be sending these new evangelic Christian missionaries all through America if that was the case? Because we've been talking about, when they say British, they say French, they say all that, that's the old American, that's Morocco. They just really they're really trying to say Morocco. They're just saying, they're just talking about the alliance we had with the European nobles who did not practice this New School stuff. This is new stuff, because understand, the New Testament type of stuff, that's the religious demonstration of industrialization, because that culture is all about that culture is the religious arm of democracy and industrial culture, meaning they want to eliminate all nobility. In the old Hebraic Muslim culture, there's nobility. There's blood titles. There's family. You know what I'm saying? There's the divine right to rule through blood. That's the old culture in America. This new culture is all about equality. There's no nobility. There's no nothing, because it's all industrial. They want corporate rule. And that's the religious arm of corporate rule. It's just that simple. So that's why they had to send these missions, because this is some new stuff. It's not indigenous to America. You know what I'm saying? And that's why Islamism and Muslim culture had to go, because Muslim culture is never going to agree with corporate culture, because Muslim culture is a noble royal culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, we deal with blood rights, blood right heirs and blood rights and holy covenants and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. So let's just talk about the history of the American Home Mission and their work in so-called America. They say that the Home Mission Society was established specifically to spread the gospel in the so-called frontier. And we know the frontier is just the old border of the United States and Morocco. So why were they needing to send missions all in the frontier? Missionaries, new school evangelic missionaries all in the frontier. So check it out. So just do some notes. The Home Mission Society was founded in 1838. In 1832. The American Baptist Home Missionary Society was founded in 1832, and it said it was an offshoot of the Domestic Mission Society that was formed in 1802 in Massachusetts. Okay, so again, we've been talking about how this New School Baptist African Methodist type of demonstration comes from the Northeast. It comes from Yankee land. It ain't got nothing to do with the rest of the country. The rest of the country has always been Muslim. That's why that's why New York is the whole Upper East Coast and the New York demonstration. These people are always different from the rest of the country. You know what I'm saying? Even to this day. You know what I mean? Like the Mississippian people in the interior of the country, they call us Bamas and all that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because we descend from the Muslims who kept the culture up. These people they sold out. It is what it is. That's why they just different from everybody else. Again, that's why New York. People look at New York as funny to this day because they are the ones who brought this. That was where they are a lot of the people who brought the nonsense to the rest of the country. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, it is what it is. But again, this New Testament type of demonstration comes from the Northeast. It is not indigenous to the South. Okay. All right. So the Home Mission Society was founded in 1832. The American Baptist Home Missionary Society was founded in 1832. And it was supposed to operate in the American frontier to so-called preach the gospel to the unchurched and destitute. Okay. Now, what we really want to understand about what we just talked about, what we really want to understand about this so-called new Baptist demonstration that they were trying to push, this new missionary Baptist demonstration that they were trying to push on the rest of the country around the time of the 1830s and everything, is that all it is and all it has ever been is a spy system and a military arm. It's a religious military arm of the industrial corporate demonstration that they were trying to push on to the rest of the country because they wanted to get rid of the nobility. So anytime you see any of these new school missionary Baptist type of demonstrations, the African Episcopal, Methodist, whatever, these are part of a whole entire corporate military. You know what I'm saying? That is meant to target the American nobles and the American inheritors to the vast trust in the estate. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? They'll tell you that they'll talk about spreading the gospel and all that, man. It's always been capped. It's always been a military operation. Don't get it messed up. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. Now, okay, initially we're just going to talk about some of the missions they sent. So they said around the time of 1833. Now, we already been doing the science on how the War of 1812. These people could not travel. The Midwest, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, and all of the South and all these places were considered slave states because they were still the Barbary states. And remember, the United States was initially bordered on the Appalachian Mountains. Everything west of the Appalachian Mountains and to the south was considered the Barbary states, was considered Morocco. So these were considered slave states because the reason they were considered slave states is people who were not Muslim or Hebraic or noble or royal or anything or had passed or anything, they had no rights. You know what I'm saying? They literally we could do whatever we wanted to do to these people and nobody gave a damn. You know what I'm saying? The United States had no rights. These people had no rights in the Barbary states, which was everything west of the Appalachian Mountains. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they call them the slave-holding states. Now, we already know that after the War of 1812, the Barbary military and everything kind of got broke down. So the United States had a lot more extraterritorial rights where they could move around a little more. And we weren't really snatching their people up like we used to and making them disappear and doing whatever like we used to. You know what I'm saying? So in alignment with those dates, we already talked about the 1816 treaties that got imposed on the Barbary states, where the United States was able to get control of their citizens, and you had to turn all their citizens back over to the United States. You couldn't just beat them upside the head, arrest them, jail them, whatever you want to do with them no more after 1816. So this is another story of in 1816, they sent the domestic they sent some missionaries to so-called Missouri territory. Now it's an interesting story. Now again, I thought that Missouri, the interior of the country, was an old French colony, and it was an old British colony. You know what I'm saying? So there had to have already been some of this type of Christianity already out there, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would they need to start sending missionaries out there all the way in 1816? You know what I'm saying? Because again, this New Testament Christianity, it was not prevalent in the rest of the country. You know what I'm saying? So in 1816, they had to send missionaries to Missouri territory. So now an interesting play they did say, and you have to kind of read through the lines. They talked about how these missionaries, they went to St. Louis. You know what I'm saying? These missionaries had to kind of operate in secret because Missouri law so-called forbade teaching the so-called free blacks to read and write. Now, you have to read between the lines. They said they're talking about some free blacks. What really is going on here, and then it said some of these missionaries had to operate in secret. They had to teach the gospel to the so-called free blacks in secret and everything. And it even said that one of these missionaries was running around hiding from a Missouri sheriff or sheriff. Now that goes to show that so-called Missouri, Illinois, and all these territories were part of the old Barbary states, and they were already organized with their own Muslim, Hebraic governments and everything. We already was rocking. Everything was already drawn up. We were already doing that thing. It's just that these new school Christians had no rights in these places. And it was only after 1816 that they were able to move around. You couldn't just tear them up like we used to. So it said that they were trying to teach the free blacks. Now, all that was, again, we've always had a criminal class and a slave class or whatever. So again, there probably were laws, again, in Missouri, so-called Missouri territory, Illinois territory. The big bosses in those old territories looked like they were Mississippians looking like yours truly. Okay, don't get it messed up. St. Louis to this day is a majority Mississippian city. It's always been that way. It ain't nothing new under the sun. Missouri used to, you know what I'm saying? Missouri, these places, all up and down the Mississippi, these are majority Mississippian places. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing new under the sun. We were just running things back then in these places. So when they talk about they were trying to educate the free blacks, again, in these territories, we had laws. What was really going on was we had laws that we had our own languages. We were speaking Latin. We were speaking all these high languages. We had laws that forbade them teaching this new English and all this nonsense to these people. You know what I'm saying? Even if they were free Mississippians, we had laws that these people, we had like a whole culture where we didn't want our people learning that nonsense. You know what I'm saying? They had to stick with our old laws and our old Hebraic laws. So yeah, it literally just said that this so-called missionary he was hiding from a sheriff in Missouri territory. That means we had laws against that nonsense. And before 1816, they would get arrested for coming out there with that crap. You know what I'm saying? So again, when they talk about it was against the law to teach the so-called free blacks to read and write, a lot of these people were probably free Mississippians, or they were slaves, or people that we arrested and massed in prison. Because again, Christians, so new school Christians had no rights in Barbary territory. So we did have laws. You couldn't teach these people nothing, but you couldn't even preach a free Mississippian, a Muslim Mississippian, that stuff. We had rules against that mess. So that's why these missionaries is running around hiding in Missouri territory in 1816 and 1817, around that time, because it was against the law to bring that stuff out there. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. Now, it says that, just reading some notes about this missionary society. It said that the American Baptist Missionary Convention in 1840 called they held a convention in New York, and they called for the emancipation of all slaves, and they were all anti-slavery. Now all that means is, again, understand, coming from a new school Christian at that time period, coming from their perspective, they hated Islam, because in Islam, again, all this equality and worshiping foreign gods, that was outlawed in the old Barbary states. We didn't play that mess, and you would get knocked upside your head. So that was slavery to these people. So that's when they say they're anti-slavery, they're like, we're anti-Islam, because Islam was the dominant force in old America. It just was. So when they basically made a declaration, the American Baptist Union, American Baptist Missionary Society made a declaration that we want Islam out of this country. That's all they mean when they say anti-slavery in 1840. You know what I'm saying? In New York. So again, New York pops up again. All this stuff, all this crazy stuff that has infiltrated and ruined a lot of Mississippian communities through a lot of these churches who have done absolutely nothing for the community. That comes from the Yankee Northeast. It ain't never came from the South. Understand that, because the South and the West was always Muslim. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. Now, interestingly enough, we talked about how they said they also sent missions to Michigan Territory, and they built in about 1833, 1834, and they couldn't really go into Michigan, so-called Michigan Territory, until after the War of 1812, because again, the Barbary army had to be broken down, because again, we was not allowing these people, they could not go nowhere. You know what I'm saying? They would get knocked upside their head going with that stuff. So it had to be after 1816 that they could even come out there with their missionary mess. So it said they sent missions to Michigan Territory. They set up the first church ever in so-called Michigan Territory in 1834. They also set their first church up in Chicago in 1834. But interestingly enough, when you research the American Baptist Missionary Society, it literally talks they literally did little to no work in the South at all, in the southern states at all, until after the Civil War. That tells you right there. That literally tells you right there. That tells you that New Testament Christianity was outlawed in the South all the way up until 1865. It may not have even after the War of 1812, it may not have been on the books anymore, but these people knew better than to come down South with that nonsense. They would get knocked upside their head. You know what I'm saying? Everybody in the South was turbaned up, rocking their garbs and all that. We was not playing with these people down South. You know what I'm saying? The Civil War and the Confederacy had to fall before they could even bring that. They could bring these missionary churches and any of that stuff in the South. So they even always gave you these stories about plantations and them making the slaves read the Bible and all that stuff. And the slave owners was Christians and all that, man, that was capped the whole damn time. That stuff was not allowed down South. It just literally wasn't. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you might have had a few spots, a few people ever set their little churches up here and there. And there's always been churches, but these new school churches and all that stuff, they might have been able to set them up here and there, but they were scattered. They was very sparse. The South did not allow this New Testament Christianity culture in nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Literally, it says they did little to no work in the South until after 1865. Now, it says that the Home Missionary Society, after the Civil War, they helped establish so-called schools for freedmen. And they actually helped establish about 27 historically black colleges, HBCUs. Now, what that tell you right there. Now, we've already done knowledge on how after the Civil War, they put the South under martial law. And they pretty much rounded a lot of our people up, had them in Union camps and all that stuff, and literally forced everybody. They literally outlawed Islam. You couldn't practice Islam no more through force. And they put you in these Christian re-education schools by the thousands. You know what I'm saying? And they were killing a lot of men also. It was a lot of women and children out there. And they were, you're defenseless. So they're going to force you to put your children in these schools and stuff like that. And they were killing off the men. You know what I'm saying? So that's forced conversion. It is what it is. And it's, again, not knocking nobody's religion, but we're talking about why the so-called Mississippians have a missing culture. Literally, we're going to break it down. We're going to start breaking down how this New Testament Christianity Baptist demonstration was pushed on the Mississippian people after 1865, all through Reconstruction, because all Reconstruction was martial law on the Mississippian people, where you couldn't go nowhere. So they were forcing you to put your children in these schools. They didn't want you to be Muslim no more, because Muslims fight. You know what I'm saying? Muslims don't play no games. They needed you to water it down because, again, it's all about industrialization. See, the Muslims used to fight too much. They wasn't allowing corporations to take their land and take anything. They would shoot. They would put a hole in your head. You know what I'm saying? That was Muslim culture. So they had to go. You feel me? So check it out. Let's keep moving. So now we just said the Home Mission, the Baptist Home Mission Society helped to establish 27 HBCUs after the war. So that means all the HBCUs in that whole demonstration was trying to was to push this new foreign god worshiping religion on our people after the Civil War. So while they got everybody out here celebrating these schools and all that stuff, that was part of the subversion. That was part of the denationalization and forced conversion of our people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's see. Now, now let's talk about what some of the Home Mission Society, what their mission was. As reading from the article, it did talk about how they wanted to their mission starting like in 1832. They said one of their mission was to evangelize Indians and Western frontiersmen. Okay, why would they need to evangelize Western frontiersmen? You know what I'm saying? I thought Western frontiersmen were United States citizens and they were Christians and stuff like that. Oh, okay. Now, it also said, interestingly enough, it said, prior to the Civil War, some missionaries were out in the Western frontier doing work with Indians and Negroes. Okay, so I thought all the Negroes were slaves, and they was like forced. They had to read the Bible, and that's the only thing they could read, and they couldn't read and write. But why were they sending missionaries out west to do work with Indians and Negroes? I mean, come on, man. All right, so now let's talk about let's see what we have here. All right. Now let's talk about specifically one story after the Civil War, okay? Because we really want to drive home how this Baptist AME culture was forced on our people after the Civil War. The majority of our people prior to the Civil War were practicing a Hebraic culture or a Muslim culture. It's just facts. It is what it is. So that's our missing culture. You know what I'm saying? That's why, again, everybody, it don't matter. I know a lot of Mississippian people understand, like, no matter how good of a church boy or church girl you try to be in your life and all of that, you've never been fully accepted, and it never really felt all the way right because you were just you had a wild spirit about yourself. We've always had a wild spirit. So it never really felt right in most people's DNA that's Mississippian because it's not your culture. You know what I'm saying? That culture come from Yankee land. It come from the Caribbean. It come from Europe. It don't come from here. We've always been the Muslims, the wild, untamed Muslims. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. They done force converted our people. You feel me? So check it out. Let's talk about they had one mission. Now they'll admit that they literally had little to no missionaries in the South before 1865. So again, that tells us more proof that the whole South was Muslim and Hebraic before the Civil War. There were no Baptist churches and all that stuff in the South before 1865. You know what I'm saying? So it says there was a missionary woman named Joanna P. Moore. She was one of the first missionaries. She was one of the first missionaries assigned to the southern states. You know what I'm saying? Around 1860, it says 1863. Now, it said Joanna P. Moore. She was a missionary, right? So she was moving with the Union Army and all of that stuff. She was a missionary with the Union Army. So it was said that she was said to have found 1,000 so-called, they call them African-American in the article, but we're going to say Moorish women and children in distress at a Union Army encampment. Okay? And she did missionary work with these people. Now, what that was these are family. The Union was going around after that. A lot of the Moorish Mississippian men were out fighting. You know what I'm saying? We was out dying and fighting and shedding blood and killing and doing what we had to do. We was fighting for ours. You know what I'm saying? We was the rebels. So again, if the Union was taking territory, they would go into these towns around the Union. They would round the women and children up, take them out their homes, burn their house down to the ground, and shove them in concentration camps. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going on. It is what it is. So when it says that this missionary woman, Joanna P. Morris, found 1,000 Moorish women and children in distress at a Union Army encampment, that just goes to show that that's exactly what was happening. So these people are in distress. They're taken out of their homes. They're literally in a concentration camp. So now, if you're in a concentration camp under martial law, guess what? They're sending these Christian missionaries up in there. Because these people are Muslims. Don't get it messed up. They Southern Muslims. They in a concentration camp. They sending Christian missionaries in there and forcing them to convert to Christianity. Because what choice do they have if they want to eat? You know what I'm saying? This is what went on. It's just facts. You feel me? So it said that 1864 she ministered to this 1863 she found and did missionary work with 1,100 Moorish women and children in distress at the Union Army encampment. Okay, 1863. 1864 she is said to have ministered to a group in Helena, Arkansas in 1864. So again, now, why would they need a Baptist missionary in Helena, Arkansas in 1864. Now I thought we had all these plantations all over the place with these Christian slave masters, and the only book their slave could read is the Bible. But why is it that the Baptist church, you know what I'm saying, needed to, they had a meeting in 1840 and said we need to emancipate the slaves, and why are the missionaries moving with the Union camp? Everywhere that the Union so-called liberates from slavery, why are the missionaries going to these places doing missionary work? Because I thought these people were already Christians, and they, you know what I'm saying, it was Christian slave owners and all that. Man, that's always been capped, man. The Muslims was always running the South, partner. Don't get it messed up. The Muslim and the Hebraic people, the 5 and the 6, we've always been running this place, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had to literally, we had to have a whole war, and they had to put everybody under martial law to get us to accept that nonsense. You know what I'm saying? That's not our culture. Not knocking it. It's just not our culture. It's not American. It's not from here. These are the Barbary states of America. They always have been, and they always will be. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. It said in 1868, she moved down to Lauderdale, Mississippi, and did some missionary work in Mississippi. Why would she need to do some missionary work in Mississippi? I thought Mississippi was, you know what I'm saying, it was all these settlers, and they had all these plantations, and they was Christians. Why would they need to move these missionaries into Mississippi in 1868? And she spent years in New Orleans administering to people and stuff like that. Why would she need to go to New Orleans? I thought New Orleans was a French city. It was already Christian. Man, get out of here, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, for real, bro. You know, just break it down, man. Just break it down, man. Peace, God, break it down. You dig? All right. One interesting note I did see was there were very few churches in the South. Again, we've already addressed that. One of the first churches that was formed was in Savannah, Georgia. It says 1788. Because we already know Savannah is one, you know, it's always been a place where you had a lot of immigrants and mingling, people mingling, a lot of people from the Caribbean and all that. It's always just been like a worldly type place, even back in those days. But again, the interior of the country was hostile to a lot of that stuff, all the way up to 1865. Don't get it messed up. You know what I'm saying? They said the first so-called African American Baptist church was formed in Lexington, Kentucky in 1824. And let's see. And then they talked about a few other churches. So again, there were no churches in the interior of the country by and large. There were very few and far between, hard to come by, because again, the interior of the country was Islam and Hebraic. So all you were going to see in the interior of this country to the west and the south were mosques and temples, Yahudi temples. That's all you were going to see. You weren't going to see too many churches. It is what it is. Because again, these are the Barbary states of America. It just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Now, it said early 1900s. I'm just going down the article reading interesting notes. In the early 1900s, so-called free blacks. Again, these are people who done converted to this new Christianity, or they're people who might have ran away or whatever. Mississippian people who wanted to worship foreign gods or whatever, but they converted themselves or whatever. So they formed independent churches in the North. They said in the early 19th century. But it also says, again, of course, in Reconstruction, missionaries from the North, and during Reconstruction, missionaries from the North attracted thousands of so-called freedmen to their churches and stuff like that. So again, man, the so-called New Testament Christianity, it was not prevalent in the South because the South was Muslim. These people, the South was literally put under martial law during Reconstruction. Our people were forced converted to this culture. You know what I'm saying? And it needs to be addressed. When you're talking about reparations and you're talking about all these things, you're going about it the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? It really needs to be addressed how our people were forcefully taken or removed from their culture. We're like the only group of people on the planet, because a lot of nations go to war. You know what I'm saying? That's the one thing about it. A lot of nations go to war. They lose, they win, or whatever. But you don't catch too many nations who, after a war is over, are forced to give up their culture, an entire culture. They may have to submit, pay taxes and all that, but you don't find too many nations that are forced to give up their entire culture. Literally, after 1865, the Mississippian people were forced to literally give up their entire culture. It was completely outlawed. You know what I'm saying? In a lot of different places, and that needs to really be addressed in political spheres, and conscious spheres, and everything. What happened to our people after 1865? It really needs to be addressed. You know what I'm saying? Because then you open up a whole nother can of worms, you know what I'm saying, as far as just the POW status and everything. That's really how you have to address. That's why you got no nationality and you got to deal with politics, you know what I'm saying? All this fake black nonsense and African-American crime for reparations and all that, man, again, man, that's for kindergarten. That's for people at a kindergarten level of intellect, you know what I'm saying? Grow up, come back into the affairs of men. Realize what really happened to your nation, you know what I'm saying? And this is another thing. It also says that the American Baptist Society, Home Missionary Society, created women's societies now. This was real big right here because a lot of us are still dealing with that to this day. This is how they started to bring in feminism and started trying to break up our dynamic with the Mississippian men, the Asiatic men, and the Asiatic women. We've always had a dynamic that worked for us. That's how we was able to become so prosperous and balling all over the world, because we kept our families intact and people had their roles. But you can see one thing about it. It says they formed the Women's American Baptist Home Mission Society in 1877. Now, of course, this has to come after the war, of course, you know what I'm saying? Because now it was 1877 to promote the Christianization of homes by missions and mission schools. So again, why would they need to promote the Christian? I thought the United States was, you know what I'm saying, was like a big old Christian country and everybody was Christians all over the dang on place. Why in 1877 did they need to start Christianizing the homes and stuff like that? I mean, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Just read. You know what I'm saying? Read and write. It said it wanted to promote, again, the Women's American Baptist Home Mission Society wanted to promote the evangelization of women among freed people, Indians, and heathen immigrants. Okay? So again, I thought all the so-called freedmen was Christian slaves on the plantations reading the Bible and all that. Why would they need to evangelize these people? You know what I'm saying? And of course the Indians, we already know they wasn't, you know what I'm saying? We know they was Muslims, so you know it's just different fake terms. But you know, but we specifically dealing with the freed people, because that's all. It's just dealing with the old rebel Muslim Moors. You know what I'm saying? They call them freed people because these were the people who were the old bosses, so they had to come up with a fake Negro freedman category for these people. You know what I'm saying? Because they were the bosses. So these are the people who had to be denationalized, you know what I'm saying, like the most. So they didn't want to acknowledge their Moorish Barbary heritage. So they had to call them the fake freedmen and all that garbage. You know what I'm saying? But why would they need to evangelize these people? I thought it was already Christian slaves and all that shit. It's all cap, man. It always has been cap, you know what I'm saying? Let's see, what else we got? Just going through the notes, man. All right, now, before we close out, this is an interesting note on into the 1800s, because we've already covered how these missionaries who are arm of the industrial democratic demonstration that was here to industrialize and denationalize and denobilize the Almoravian Empire and open it up for industrialization and mass consumption. You know what I'm saying? That's really what the play always was. But interesting notes was they had a man named, and I don't know his nationality or whatever, but they said in the late 1800s, because this deals with us to this very day as far as education. That's why they've always wanted to teach the so-called, they always talking about in the Mississippi communities, education, you need to get your education, higher education, go to college, blah, 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 blah. All of that has always been a play. Prior to, post 1865, that's always been a play, because they've always wanted you to adopt this. They've always wanted to industrialize your people and get rid of the nobility. They wanted to push you into communism and Marxism, which is godless. You know what I'm saying? Because our power has always been in having a God-fearing culture and dealing with covenants, dealing with holy covenants and mandates, and you know what I'm saying, a monotheistic type of society, theocratic type of society. That's always been our play. That's always been our culture. You know what I'm saying? But after the Civil War, they always wanted to put us into these Christian situations, because there's the new Christian situation. It's all about equality. There's no nobility. There's no merit. Everybody's the same. So I'm saying, so if you a humpback, one eye going this way, one eye going that way, and all that, even in the Old Testament, it literally calls these people lames. You know what I'm saying? In the Old Testament, it tells that, you know what I'm saying, these people are not necessarily supposed to be around nobility like that. You're supposed to be, but you're an upstanding Mississippian, 7 feet tall and just noble and regal. You're supposed to be on the same level with this humpback, one eye going this way, one eye going that way person. That's what this Christianity mess was about, getting rid of noble titles. Everybody's supposed to be equal now. So they had to brainwash us. They had to force us into that. That's not our natural nature. You know what I'm saying? So it says that the American Baptist Education Society was formed in 1888. Now, the person who started that name was Henry Lynn Morehouse. Okay, Morehouse. Check it out. Now, this is what the goal of the American Baptist Education Society was. Okay, it says they wanted to promote to so-called freedmen, or so-called, they call them the blacks or the Negroes now, a Christian education under Baptist auspices in North America. Or no, not even for the Negroes, just for everybody. They wanted to promote a Christian education under Baptist auspices in North America. Okay. Now let's just talk about it said that the American Baptist Society was able to start the University of Chicago. They started Spelman College. They started Beacon College. They started the Wayland Seminary. And, of course, they contributed to a lot of other HBCUs. But interestingly enough, they were supported heavily by John D. Rockefeller. And that's all you need to know right there. So, so that just goes to show. Because, it's already been known that a lot of the Rockefellers and all these people, they're supposed to be Jews, so-called Jews and all that stuff. So that just goes to show that it's not about religion with these people. You know what I'm saying? It never has been. It's all about a military corporate campaign to loot, raid, steal, mass consume, and drain. You know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do. Religion to these people is null and void. Religion is for the dummies. You know what I'm saying? The religious dogma in a lot of these demonstrations that these people have pushed on our people, it's for the dumb low people. You know what I'm saying? To these people who are pushing this stuff and financing this stuff, they could care less. All they're about is this money. They're about this corporate money, and they're about whatever satanic agenda they're on. So all you people, all these years, you know what I'm saying, who was just these all you know what I'm saying? And again, not knocking nobody's religion. This is freedom of religion in America. You know what I'm saying? As Moors, we've always had Moors of different religious denominations, and not just Islam. You know what I'm saying? But for all of you crazies who got brainwashed by the nonsense, and y'all always going around talking about some, the only way you can ever be saved and blah 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 is through Jesus, it's through Christ and all of that, and then putting other people's religions down and all that, and thinking y'all were just so high and mighty, and y'all had all type of crap to say. I've even been offended in some of these places after being a Muslim for so long. I might be in a funeral. You know what I'm saying? And I even have own family members talking. They'll see you turbaned up in the funeral and all that, and they want to talk down on your religion while they up there talking. You know what I'm saying? Just crazy people. Just insane. You idiots. You know what I'm saying? You idiots don't even realize that the majority of your ancestors was Muslim or Hebraic, and all that stuff got forced on your people. So you sitting up here being all militant about a foreign culture that never had nothing to do with you and has caused the destruction, that has helped to contribute to the intergenerational destruction, wealth draining, and looting of your communities. Y'all ought to be so proud of your damn selves. You know what I'm saying? And it's still on y'all, because y'all, a lot of people, generation after generation, could never be bothered to research and really figure out what happened to their people. You know what I'm saying? Why is it taking till now for real moles to really come up in here and want to teach the youth what's really going on? Because a lot of y'all have better things to do. You know what I'm saying? All these years. But anyway, just continuing to drive it home that our people were forced converted into this new religion. America has always been the Barbary states, and it's always been Muslim or Yahudi Hebrew. Okay. So anyway, I know I went longer than I normally do, but sometimes it just flow like that. So Sheekamauga Alamassee-El, tapping in live from Arabia. I'll tap back in with y'all later. Peace.